Good day, everyone. We are the third group, and we are here to discuss about global media cultures. Sana ay makuha namin ang inyong buong atensyon sa kabuuan ng ating discussion. Here are the lesson objectives. Number 1. Analyze how various media drive various forms of global integration. Number 2. Compare the social impacts of different media on the process of globalization. And lastly, number 3. Explain the dynamics between local and global cultural production. Sa lesson na ito, matututunan natin ang role ng media bilang isang importanteng kasangkapan sa pagpapalaganap ng culture globally. Bago tayo mag-proceed sa ating discussion, ito ang mga keywords na maaari niyong gamitin para mas maintindihan natin ang topic. The new generation media tools. How often do you use this platform to deliver your message?
Personally, I use those media tools on a daily basis para makontak ang mga kaibigan at pamilya ko.
Dahil sa pandemic, kailangan kong mag-rely sa mga online platforms para makipag-communicate sa mga professors at classmates ko.
Ako naman, minsan, ginagamit ko ito para makakilala ng ibang tao sa iba't ibang lugar.
Wow! It is so interesting how often we use the new generation media tools to communicate in our time. Nakakamanghari na malaman kung gaano kalaki na ang pag-unlad natin simula noong mga early times of media hanggang ngayon. Globalization relies on media as its main instrument for the spread of global culture and ideas. There is a close relationship between globalization and media, which must be revealed to further understand the contemporary world. Dr. Jack Lull, Professor of Global Studies and Professor and Chair of Journalism and Communication at Lehigh University, describes media as a means of conveying something, such as a channel of communication. His research and teaching interests include globalization and media, international communication, media and sports, and cultural and critical studies of news. He is the author of Globalization and Media, Global Village of Babel. Nakasaad sa kanyang libro na ang globalization ay hindi maaaring maganap ng walang media. From the earliest times, ang mga tao ay gumagamit ng media upang mag-explore, manirahan, at gawing pandaigdigan ang kanilang kultura. Mga ilang dekada ang lumipas, hinulaan ni Marshall McLuhan na ang teknolohiya ng media ay mababago sa mundo ng isang global village. Unti-unti naman itong natupad. However, hindi ito umayon sa kaligayahan na gaya ng hinulaan niya. Instead, Dr. Lull argues, globalization and media are combining to create a divided world of gated communities and ghettos, borders and boundaries, suffering and surfeit. For media commentators, media refers to technologies of mass communication. Kapag sinabing mass media, ito ay tumutukoy sa pag-abot sa napakalaking bilang ng mga tao. In general, media refers to various means of communication. Ang television, radio, at newspapers ay mga halimbawa ng iba't ibang uri ng media. Ang media rin ay tumutukoy sa channel of communication kung saan napapalaganap ang mga balita, music, pelikula, edukasyon, mga promotional messages, at iba pang impormasyon. It explains the different forms of communication that we use in society. Since it includes all modes of communication, media can include everything from a phone call to the nightly news on television. Noon, nalalaman natin ang lahat ng balita sa pamamagitan ng news and entertainment mula sa TV, radyo, dyaryo, at mga magazines. Pero ngayon, ang internet na ang namamayagpag sa mundo ng media. Print newspapers are struggling as hundreds of millions of people each year switch to news sources online. To put it simply, media is the means or ways of transmitting the message from sender to the receiver. The human speech is the oldest and most enduring of all media. This is referred to as oral communication. Face-to-face contact, telephone or mobile communication, conferences, meetings, and so on are examples of oral communication media. Ito rin ay tumutukoy sa proseso ng komunikasyon kung saan ang mga mensahe o impormasyon ay naipapadala sa pamamagitan ng salita ng bibig. Script is the very first writing that allowed humans to communicate and share knowledge and ideas over much larger spaces and across much longer times. From the early Bronze period until the beginning of the Common Era, ay naimbento na ang script. It got its name from the wedge-shaped impressions that make up its signs, which is called cuneiform. It is a writing system invented by the ancient Sumerians of Mesopotamia between 3500s and 3000 BCE. Ito ay tinuturing na pinakamahalaga sa mga ambag ng kultura ng Sumerian. Next is printing press. The printing press started the information revolution and transformed markets, businesses, nations, schools, churches, governments, armies, and more. Ang printing press ay isang makina kung saan ang texts at images ay inililipat sa papel o iba pang media sa pamamagitan ng tinta. Unang lumitaw ang mechanized printing sa mga bansang China at Europe. Noong 1979, sinuri ni Elizabeth Einstein ang maraming malalim na impluwensya ng printing press. Kasama sa mga impluwensyang ito, ang pangangalaga at pamantayan ng kaalaman at ang hamon ng otoridad sa politika at relihiyon. Electronic media are forms of media that require electricity to use. Telegraph, telephone, radio, film, and television are the usual media collected under this. Electronic media is media that uses electromechanical device to access the content. Ito ay katulad ng sa social media na ngayon ay madalas nating gamitin. Karamihan sa mga bagong media ay nasa anyo ng digital media. Electronic media makes it possible to link people from one end to the other by using media facilities to put them together. Digital media, on the other hand, are electronic media that rely on digital codes. Any type of media that is transmitted by electronic devices is referred to as digital media. Electronic devices may be used to build, display, alter, and distribute this type of media. Software, video games, videos, blogs, social networking, and online advertisements are all examples of digital media. The world we live in nowadays is full of digital media products, and these products enable and deliver experiences from many industries such as health, government, and education. Ang mga ito ay popular dahil nakakaaliw, simpleng gamitin, at pinapadali ang ating mga gawain sa araw-araw. Sa patuloy na pagbabago ng teknolohiya, hindi maitatanggi ng isang tao ang impluwensyang mayroon ang digital media sa ating pamumuhay. Binabago nito ang paraan ng ating pagtuturo, entertainment, pag-publish, at pakikipag-ugnayan sa bawat isa araw-araw.
It is simple to define what media is. Like Jerisa said, media refers to various means of communication. However, their functions and effect in society is more complex. Media theorist Marshall McLuhan asserted the famous line, "The medium is the message." But who is Marshall McLuhan? Marshall McLuhan, or Herbert Marshall McLuhan, was a Canadian theorist and educator whose work is among the media theory. He began his teaching career as an English professor. He is master of misdirection, provocation, and willfully obtuse. He described his style as a mosaic. Mostly in mosaic, we get to be distracted to its image and color, forgetting the message. The best example of his mosaic style is his famous line, "The medium is the message." Do you think that medium is irrelevant because it dissolves into the message, but is the other way around? The phrase summarizes view of the content of media. The medium nature of medium is more important than message, while the message is the scale or pattern that new inventions or innovation introduces in human affairs. These conclude that hindi yung message yung nag-initiate ng social change, but the technology. Right now, mas nakadepend tayo sa technologies, like when we make our assignments. Instead na maghanap muna tayo sa libro, is mag-i-internet na lang, o kaya pag mamimili, instead na pupunta tayo sa markets, online shopping na lang, mas nagre-rely tayo sa technologies dahil mas napapadali yung gawain natin. But technology refrain us to communicate physically unlike before. Various forms of media extended human senses and damped them at the same time. Like cell phone, it helps us to communicate but also become distraction and more prone in multitasking. Effects of media drew people away from other meaningful activities such as play or reading. Dati mas involved tayo sa pagbabasa ng libro o kaya pakikipaglaro sa mga kaibigan natin. But right now, hindi na tayo nai-involve sa mga ganong activity. Instead, nakababad tayo sa Facebook. Shared post, tamang stock lang sa crush o kaya ML. Changes viewer social behavior and family behavior. Yung mga trends sa social media ginagaya natin. It provides the capability to communicate to people. Mas napapadali yung pakikipag-communicate natin. Pero minsan yung tipong nasa isang room na tayo, pero nag-video call pa din. Instead, nakikipag-usap na lang tayo ng personal.
Thank you for giving us information about media and its function. Based on the report, we can define media as a primary tool in disseminating news, music, movies, promotion, and other data. But what are the importance impact of media on our cultural globalization?
The media have a very important impact on cultural globalization in two mutually independent ways. First, the media provide an extensive transnational transmission of cultural products. Sinasabi dito na nagbibigay ang media ng malawak na paghahatid ng mga produktong pangkultura. Media made it easier for people to learn about other culture by TV shows like National Geographic that features documentaries with factual content involving culture.
For example, the internet, isa sa nag-contribute sa pagbuo ng mga network ng komunikasyon. This is Marshall McLuhan. He used the analysis of technology to examine the impact of electronic media. Since he was writing around the 1960s, he mainly analyzed the social changes brought about He said that he was turning the world into a global village. A global village is like a line that connects every day, closely together by media. People would be neighbors living in ideal condition of universal understanding and unity. As more people watch the TV or the television, they gradually perceive the world as a smaller community. This actively demonstrates that the global village making the world as a smaller community by using media. And FYI, Global Village started in January 1997, located on the Creekside opposite to Dubai Municipality. It then later shifted to the old Meta area near Wafi City for 5 years.
Global media. What comes to your mind when you see these words? Is it good or is it bad? Global media is the mass communication on a global level, allowing people across the world to share and access the same information. It is indeed that technologies make people's lives easier. However, Louis Mumford, an American historian, sociologist, philosopher of technology, and literary critic, thought that media technology was instead used as a tool for capitalism, militarism, profit, and power. Ayon sa kanya, ang teknolohiya ay papabor sa higit na hindi pagkakapantay-pantay na kung saan mas lalong pagpapatibayin at papalakasin pa nito ang mga bansang may mas malawak na kaalaman sa paggamit ng media technology. For him, global media communication will facilitate more war.
Commentators believe that media globalization, coupled with American hegemony, would create a form of cultural imperialism, whereby American values and culture would overwhelm all others. The most common example of hegemony can be observed in the franchising and globalization of broadcasting, which involve franchises like KFC, Starbucks, McDonald's, and etc. It also includes the practice of foreign companies to produce products that will sell well in the foreign market.
This is Jan Tomlinson, a professor of cultural sociology and director of the Institute for Cultural Analysis in Nottingham, England. He considered cultural globalization as simply a euphemism for Western cultural imperialism since it promotes homogenized, westernized consumer culture. According to him, accelerated globalization is influencing and transforming the cultures of people used to experience in local sense. During the process of globalization, political system and economic system of the world tend to be homogenized. JFK and MJ, political turmoil of the Cuban Missile Crisis year 1962, and the Be Like Mike commercial 1992. Can you identify the effect of this event to the public?
The Cuban Missile Crisis drew the country together as people rallied around the president.
The Be Like Mike commercial breakthrough into popular culture and the public's collective consciousness. Even non-basketball fans are familiar with that phrase and jingle from the advertisement.
What is cultural imperialism? Cultural imperialism is the imposition by one usually politically or economically dominant community of various aspects of its own culture onto another non-dominant community. It is also a form of imperialism in that the imposing community forcefully extends the authority of its way of life over the other population by either transforming or replacing aspects of the non-dominant community's culture. In other words, cultural imperialism is the process and practice of promoting one's culture over another. Para mas maintindihan natin, ano nga ba ang cultural imperialism o imperialismong pangkultura? Ang imperialismong pangkultura ay isang uri ng patakaran o pamamahala kung saan ang mas malaki o mas makapangyarihang bansa ay naghahangad ng mas mapalawak ang kanilang kapangyarihan sa pamamagitan ng pagsakop at pagpapakilala ng sarili nilang kultura sa iba pang mga bansa. Dahil sa hangarin na mas mapalawak ang kanilang kapangyarihan, ang imperialismong pangkultura ay naging isa sa mga pangunahing instrumento ng kolonisasyon. This often occurs when one nation overpowers another country, typically one that is economically disadvantaged and militarily weaker. However, during the 20th century, cultural imperialism was no longer so closely linked with military intervention, but rather with the exertion of economic and political influence by some powerful countries over less powerful countries. In 1980s, media scholars began to pay attention to the ways in which audiences understood and interpreted media messages through their own cultural lenses. However, in 1990, Elihu and Tabar argued that texts are received differently by varied interpretative communities. Sa kasagsagan din ng taong ito, nagsimula ang malawakang pagkalat at pagpapakilala ng iba't ibang mga produktong pangkultura o tinatawag na cultural products. Cultural products are goods and services that include the arts, heritage conservation, the cultural industries, and festivals of any country. Today, cultural imperialism tends to describe the United States' role as a cultural superpower throughout the world. This Americanization of other cultures is said to occur when the mass exportation of American films, music, clothing, and food into other countries threatens to replace local products and to alter or extinguish features of the traditional way of life. Ilan sa mga kapansin-pansin na halimbawa ng imperialismo ay ang mga pelikulang Hollywood, programa sa telebisyon mula sa US, sikat na kantang pop at mga pananamit na kumakalat sa daigdig. Kahit sa sports, napakalakas din ng impluwensya ng kulturang US. Dito sa Pilipinas, hindi maitatanggi na basketball ang pinakapopular na laro para sa mga kalalakihan. Kasunod nito, ang unti-unti rin na pagsikat at pagkakakilanlan ng mga produktong galing sa Asya, mapapagkain man ito, tugtog, pelikula at mga programa. Ang pinakasikat na Japanese brand sa Pilipinas ay Hello Kitty, Mario Brothers at Pokemon. As explained by Abinales and Claudio, given with these patterns, it is no longer acceptable to insist that globalization is an unidirectional process of foreign cultures overwhelming local ones. As noted in the past lesson, globalization will remain an uneven process and it will produce inequalities, but it will surely leave room for dynamism and cultural change. And these changes is just a mere testament to the phenomenon's complexity. The best from the decades. Where were you when this craze was a hit?
I was around 7 years old when I tried playing Super Mario.
Good day everyone, I'm Natalie Eldelmo and our reporting for today is all about social media and the creation of cyber ghettos. First of all, what is social media? Social media are interactive web 2.0 internet-based application, user-generated content such as posts or comment, digital photos or videos, and data generated through all online interaction. For individuals, social media is used to keep in touch with friends and extended family. Ang social media ay mayroong kaugnayan sa komunikasyon at teknolohiya. Sa panahon natin ngayon, talamak ang paggamit ito. Marami sa atin ay ginagamit ito upang mapadali ang pamaraan ng pagkokomunika sa ibang tao kahit sila ay nasa malayang lugar. Ito ay sa kadahilan ng dulot ng makabagong teknolohiya. Some people will use various social media applications to network, create opportunities, find people across the globe with like interests, and share their thoughts, feelings, and emotion. Habang tumatagal ang panahon, mas dumarami ang uri ng social media. Ilan dito ay ang ating araw-araw na ginagamit, tulad ng Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, at marami pang iba. Globalization is the idea that we can be connected to all culture and products around the world. The current focus of the globalization of technology is the creation created by network of social media. As access is gained globally, it creates opportunities to those who are first experiencing the use of outsourced idea. Paano nga ba naging konektado ang social media sa ating mundo? Dahil sa pang-araw-araw natin na pangailangan, it benefits us to our school, work, at marami pang iba. Dito tayo nakakapag-explore globally. Dito tayo nakakapag-share ng ating nararamdaman at mas naging updated tayo sa mga bagay-bagay at mga makabagong impormasyon. As with all media, social media have beneficial and negative effects. Siyempre, lagi nating tatandaan na kung mayroong magandang na idudulot, siya mayroon ding hindi magandang maidudulot kapag tayo ay umaabusan na. Lahat ng uri ng komunikasyon ay accessible sa atin kung tayo ay mayroong internet connection or data connection. According to Abinales and Claudio 2018, ang mga uri ng media na ito ay nahayaan tayong gamitin at lumikha ng mga bagong impormasyon sa ating mundo.
I'm Christian M. Inapia. I discuss a social media and creation of cyber ghettos. What is social media? Refers to the means of interaction among people in which they create, share, and exchange information and ideas in virtual communication and networks. Ito yung source of interaction and to socialize. Example of social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at marami pang iba. Sa panahon ngayon ay lahat naman siguro ng tao ay gumagamit ng social media para aware sila sa nangyayari sa environment, o iba naman tamang scroll lang, Facebook, libangan, ganun lang po. Sa social media, meron ding positive and negative. Positive like updated ka sa nangyayari sa environment. Negative naman, madaming kumakalat na fake news, sabay marami ding nanloloko. At sa social media, mas pinadali nito yung makipag-ugnayan sa maraming tao, malayo man o malapit. Gawa ng meron na tayong social media apps tulad ng Messenger and marami pang iba. What is cyber ghettos? Cyber ghettos, the equivalent of a ghetto in cyberspace, a place on the internet where a social group is marginalized. In the early 2000s, commentators began referring to the emergence of splinternet and the phenomenon of cyber balkanization. The media is divided into many sectors depending on the use. That's called splinternet. What is splinternet? Splinternet is a characterization of the internet as splintering and dividing due to various factors such as technology, commerce, politics, nationalism, religion, and divergent national interests, also referred to as cyber balkanization. Ang splinternet daw ay isang pan na nilikha upang ilarawan ang internet dahil meron ito sa kada bansa. Example of splinternet phenomenon are the control of content by the authorities in China, or the blocking of certain US media outlets to users located in Europe as a result of the new data protection law approved by European Union. What is cyber balkanization? Cyber balkanization is the segregation of the internet into smaller groups with similar interests to a degree that they show a narrow-minded approach to outsiders or those with contradictory views. Ang cyber balkanization daw ay proseso kung saan ang pagsensor at ang paglalapad ng mga filter sa nilalaman ng internet ay nagdudulot ng pagkawatak-watak o mga subdivision sa loob. That's all my report. Thank you.